Interesting mix of an established company. We were established in 2006, but didn't convert to a SaaS business until 2015. Brought in a new CEO in 2015, ramped pretty aggressively, closed our Series B in 2018 with a phenomenal group of investors that are all mission-driven, highly aligned with our organization, and since then have experienced some significant growth along with some really, really great customer partners. I can hear it. Oh. So I have a sign in my office. It says "Get shit done," okay? Because that's what you have to do sometimes. Here we go. All right. So I'm going to talk about 5 marketing lessons for growth, also known as shit I've learned the hard way in the last 3 years, right? So a lot of these are going to be kind of funny, some self-deprecating humor about, some stereotypical kind of, sales and marketing trust. I'm going to use that. I do use alignment, Sangram, in my talk today, but it's such a better word, and I'm actually going to start changing my talk track. If you missed the morning, it was phenomenal. So, a few caveats before we get started. We are B2B enterprise software, so I think that there are some things that played really well for us that perhaps aren't as applicable to B2C, and we do not sell our software on our website. We don't publish pricing. It's all very account-based, very targeted. So I think that there are some nuances to that. So I just want to make sure that I disclose that in the beginning and don't feel like every potential point. I hope that you get some tips and tricks out of this. We're selling to a really immature market, really immature. Like some places, some of these food manufacturing facilities don't have internet. And we're trying to talk to them about a mobile app, right? And some of them are buying software for the very first time. And so that was a lesson learned, certainly, as we evolved the sales cycle as well. And we don't have it all figured out. I would say we're in between that kind of good to great. And we're working towards that, obviously, all the time. All right, lesson number 1. Automation, tools, these things that you have, they can do amazing things, but it will not solve for that alignment. And I learned this the hard way coming in, as I mentioned, marketing hire number 1. And so I was the marketing team, and I had 3 salespeople at the time. And I came in and I was like, all right, I'm going to automate all this stuff. Inbound demo requests, I'm going to build a form. I'm going to have an automatic email that triggers from that salesperson. It's going to get queued on the actual territory, right? So we were geographically based territories. And they're going to get an email back from that particular salesperson within 6 minutes of filling out that form. Right? And they're going to have the Calendly link in the email. Like, I'm just going to automate everything as much as I possibly can. What is this a picture of? So it is the representation of the lead handoff at FoodLogiq around 2015. And I thought, in my naivete, right, I had automated everything, right? So what we had was inbound demo requests over here, right? And we were very productive. We had, at the time, a piece of legislation that came out called the Food Safety Modernization Act. I had this really great content that was highly relevant for people. I basically ripped off stuff from the federal government, but you all pay for it, right? It's, so I copied stuff from the FDA, turned it into ebooks and fact sheets, had it as downloads, highly relevant, very productive on that top of the funnel, right? But what ended up happening was because we hired closer mentality salespeople, they were cherry picking, right? So they were just kind of, oh, that's a name that I know, so I'm going to follow up. And then what happened was the graveyard of everything else, right? Leads just died. I mean, these are people that are saying, yes, I'm interested. I want to see what you have to offer, right? Not entirely qualified, right? It's not an opportunity yet. It's not pipeline, but they're at least raising their hand. And I was beating my head up against the wall. And when Vince introduced me, that's about the time that I talked to him. And I was literally seeking out all sorts of sales leaders and sales experts to say, what am I doing wrong, right? Like, I feel like I'm trying to meet you halfway. And he was like, yeah, they're never going to do it. You know, you've hired sales, closer type mentalities. They're not going to follow up unless they feel like it's right in front of them. And that's just the reality, right? And we've got to come together and connect. And that's what we started to do. So I went into my CEO's office and I said, look, like, we need to use, the salespeople that we have, the talent that they are, right? Which is getting them, across the finish line. And we've got to hire sales development. And so that's what we did. And this has been an evolution for us as well. So I went in and I said, I just need one resource. I need one SDR who's going to extend the qualification of these leads so that we can get them to a better place from a qualification standpoint. And that's what I see as marketing's role. So the SDRs at FoodLogiq report into marketing, report into me. And now we've built that team out to a team of about 5 people. And initially, when we focused on it, we focused on volume. That was what we needed at the time. But we had to push the metrics and push the evolution of that to get to the point where we are today, which is focusing on sales accepted opportunities. So the leads come in, they get nurtured, they're interacting with the SDRs. We're trying to get them to a point where they're willing to take a meeting with the salesperson. Sometimes the SDR is taking that meeting by themselves. Depends on kind of how skilled they are. And then, the marketing team at FoodLogiq is the success of what we're doing is actually rooted in, are we creating sales accepted opportunities for the sales team? So it's no longer about this webinar got 300 registrants. It's no longer about, this AdWords campaign, 300 downloads or whatever that is. It's, did it create a conversation for the sales team? And then did it actually turn into, at our point, is at 10% is when it's a sales accepted opportunity. Has certain criteria. The sales team member, the account executive actually has to convert it in Salesforce from the 1% to the 10%. And at that point, that's what our SDRs are actually comped on. And we've evolved that process over time. But at the underlying root of all of that, in every single one of my team members' work plans, we have that as the metric. Is it going to create pipeline? Is it going to create a sales accepted opportunity for our sales team? Another key piece that we did that I found that kind of evolved over time was we've had some sales leadership that had marketing lives over here in the sales cycle, or I guess if you guys in your perspective, over here, and then kind of sales owns everything else from an interaction standpoint. And it breaks down. So we've worked really, really hard to make sure that we're mapping across every stage in the sales cycle, what are those pain points that those target buyers really want to understand, and then how can marketing support that? So how can I give you the answers to those questions or the answers to those objections that you're going to hear in advance of actually them doing that, right? And so we've got a couple of examples here specifically. We hear, because we're selling to an immature market as well, we hear a lot of, well, my IT guy doesn't want to do this, or, so we're literally always listening to sales calls, always connecting with our salespeople to understand what are those objections that you're hearing, and then how can we frame our marketing content to those objections, as opposed to where I feel like it happens sometimes where marketing is sitting over here and they're just kind of brainstorming, creating content, but it's not actually relevant to what the sales team needs. And I think that's where there's the biggest disconnect in terms of content marketing. All right, lesson number 2, add in PR and media as soon as you can. I think this is more for the CMOs or the marketers in the room. I have felt in some of the networking events that we've gone to, and particularly for those growth companies where you have limited resources, they're like, yeah, PR, media, that kind of stuff comes later. I think it's incredibly powerful. We actually hired a PR firm about 6 months prior to really aggressively doing the fundraising, because it just raises your profile so much. And if you can get some really, really good media, and you don't, and I'm not knocking because I know there's some agency folks in the room, if you can't hire an agency, there are certainly some things that you can do individually as a marketer. Scheduling briefings over direct pitching. So this is really a focus on building relationships, right? If you're constantly saying, hey, I need something from you. I want you to do something for me, right? The media is not going to be as responsive. If you say, hey, you know what, the next time you have a story about, a foodborne outbreak, let me just tell you a little bit about, let me give you some stats, let me show you some research, and when you're ready and you have a story, give me a call, right? It completely changes the kind of the dynamics of the conversation because no longer are you asking them for something, you're actually kind of becoming a helpful resource for them. Media attend trade shows too. I think we think about trade shows as just, sales and prospecting, but they're there as well. We applied for every single award under the sun. And, some of them are hokey and some of them, aren't really gonna, again, turn too many heads, but sometimes, you can get that. It really builds your brand, and that's really, at this point, for us, as we were growing and trying to raise that round, that's really helpful for us. Two things that we did that really had a significant impact, creating your own research. So we launched a survey of 2,000 consumers and asked them a series of questions around their expectations about how fast a food company responds to recalls and what they want in their food labels, a variety of things that we then turned around into actually building the story arc for our pitch. So when we go to a retail grocer, we say, consumers expect that you respond to a recall fully within 1 to 2 days. Can you do that? And then in turn, our software obviously helps them do that. And then leverage your network for influencer PR. So we did a state of traceability survey where I just took 10 consultants that I had worked with and networked with over the years and met at conferences and sent them 3 questions. What's the current state of traceability in the food supply chain? What does it look like in 10 years? And what are the biggest problems that food professionals are facing today? You turn that around into really great content, and you create that influencer effect because then they all share that in their networks, on social media, and it really balloons. And it's something that's really easy that you can do from a content marketing standpoint. Lesson 3. Your customers are on the exact same journey as you are. And for us, this really resonated because you have to center on the why, right? So we're selling, what we're selling at FoodLogiq is people not getting sick when they eat, right? We're not selling, a module within a piece of software, right? And our buyers are highly aligned to that. I heard it over and over again as I would talk to prospects, and they would say, food safety isn't competitive. And so if you align with their mission, you'll create that partnership of what you want. And that's what we've been able to do with some really, really amazing brands. And except for Subway, Whole Foods, and Chipotle, these are all brands that we've signed in the last year and who work with us hand in hand. And that's, again, I think because we're selling to an immature market, we're selling to a market where technology really hasn't hit the supply chain. We have a lot of innovation happening in the restaurants and retail locations, a lot of innovation happening on the farm. But in between, which is really our sweet spot, there hasn't been a lot. And so we partner with them and really help them share their story of what they're doing that's innovative in the supply chain. And one of the best partners that we've had in doing that is Whole Foods Market. And that webinar is in 33 minutes. Thankfully, I have a wonderful team, and it was also pre-recorded, which was a requirement from Whole Foods PR, which we will gladly accommodate. So, again, marketing with your customers, being very customer-centric, and making sure that you are, aligning to really what are they passionate about, right? So whether or not you're selling a marketing automation software, and you want to align around messages of efficiency and how they're able to take those resources from the time saved of using your software, your platform, to do some other really cool marketing things. Like how can you understand exactly what it is that they're passionate about, and then help them tell that story. We do all of the work. We have been incredibly productive in getting our customers to speak with us at conferences, to do webinars, to do all sorts of things, but take on the burden of doing the work. And you'd be surprised at how much and people actually want to do it, or they want to speak. with your company, but they're like, God, I gotta do a deck, and I gotta do this, and you take all of that out, and they're willing to do it. Never make it about you. So this is, I find this is kind of marketing 101. For me, it's, this should not be about you or your brand. It should be about raising up your customer, helping them tell their story, and really making them be the hero. And if you do that well, they'll keep coming back. And they'll want to speak with you, and they'll want to do things with you, because it's not shameless self-promotion. It's really about telling their story, and it will work. Like, in the art of telling their story, you're right there. You're in the screenshots, you're in the talking points, and it doesn't have to be that much of a hard sell. Scratching that out, writing trust. I could have changed them, before I got on stage, but that felt sleazy to me. So we talk about marketing and sales alignment all the time, ad nauseum, right? But don't forget, and for us, this is, we're a software company, product and customer success. And I think it really is about trust. I need to trust that my product team and my engineering team are going to deliver on that release that is scheduled just prior to the trade show where we're making that major announcement. You have to come together to make sure that you're all on the same page. And the same, I'm not going to get too much into customer success because I know Carolyn's going to talk a little bit later, but the same is true for customer success. They need to trust that the sales team isn't overselling what you guys have, and then they have to pay for it when they're trying to actually implement the customer. And so for us at FoodLogiq, the resonation of that was our commitment to customers. We came together as a group, drafted this customer commitment statement, and this is something that we show in every single customer presentation, every single prospect presentation. It is very, very critical to us culturally as a company that we are highly aligned to the needs of our customers. And we help and actually use this as a way to make decisions as a stakeholder group, as a leadership team. Are we staying true to this? And then last, don't sacrifice your brand for the latest buzz in the industry. And for us at FoodLogiq, where we're selling food traceability, this buzz is blockchain. So we have been implementing traceability with food companies for a number of years. Actually, in 2006, we implemented traceability of cattle in Canada that actually kept the borders open, if you recall that there was a mad cow disease outbreak in Canada, and through the traceability work that we were doing, actually kept the borders open. So we are rooted in this traceability. And then this small company called IBM comes along, and apologize if there are any IBMers in the group, and just blew it up, right? And really what they're selling is traceability. It's a different technology underpinning. And so we had to ask ourselves, what are we going to do about this? Right, we have to respond. We had competitors who completely replatformed. Just completely replatformed whether or not it was actually true, and they were actually using blockchain, that's another question. And we decided at FoodLogiq, we were like, we're doing this. We're accomplishing the use case. It's an interesting application of the technology, but really we're already there. We're already there with our customers. If we completely change our brand and who we are, we have the potential to scare our customers. We have the potential to all to really just kind of newsjack this big thing that's going on. So what we did, sorry, I did insert this yesterday. This is a interesting kind of cartoon about blockchain. I'll let you guys read it in a second. It's actually really funny. It's always something, right? There's always going to be that next thing, right? And what are you going to kind of hook your brand onto? So what we did was we launched FoodLogiq Labs. So this was a way for us to actually position an innovation arm within our entity, working hand in hand with our customers on these advanced technologies. And I'm not a blockchain naysayer, to say the least, but I just think we're still like 5 to 10 years out from it actually being a real thing in the food industry specifically. And so we did that. We launched FoodLogiq Labs. We launched a pilot, and are working with Tyson and Subway and a variety of, thank you, a variety of customers to actually implement this. And some other things as well. AI, machine learning, predictive analytics, IoT and sensors. There's a lot of potential in the food supply chain. And so not kind of abandoning that core customer base and what your customers have aligned themselves around with you, but instead trying to reposition it obviously under an Innovation Labs brand. So they've been yelling at me that I need to get off the stage. So thank you so much. I hope that I provided a couple of helpful tips kind of on that growth of marketing from a team of one to a larger team and going through that round. And thank you so much for the opportunity.